Welcome to Tzu Chi This Week. I'm Siri. Thank you for joining us. We follow a Filipino teenage leukemia patient's cross-country medical journey. A Malaysian victim of domestic violence rises above life's challenges thanks to Tzu Chi volunteers. Tzu Chi volunteers in Liaoning help clean up the home of a woman in a vegetative state. A Filipino teenager, Martin Ko, suffers from acute leukemia. Fortunately, when the Hualien City Hospital superintendent went to the Philippines to give a medical lecture, Martin and his family finally had a chance to raise funds for his medical expenses, helping him begin his cross-country medical journey. Currently, Martin is staying in Hualien to wait for a bone marrow transplant. Follow our report as we learn how this family bonded with Tzu Chi.
Happy to go here in Hualien for my medication, and that's I'm so happy because I have a chance to live again because of the stem cell transplant.
The 16-year-old Filipino teenager Martin Go suffers from leukemia. Currently, he stays in Hualien to wait for a bone marrow transplant.
Hello, Martin.
Back when he was still in the Philippines, Martin and his family lived in the apartments offered by his father's boss. The environment was relatively clean and comfortable. Tzu Chi volunteers went often to care for him.
I have faith in my son that he'll be able to fight against the disease. After undergoing the last chemotherapy, his health has improved. I believe that he will recover soon.
The Hualien Tzu Chi Hospital doctor Li Qichen traveled from Taiwan to the Philippines to accompany Martin Go to come to Hualien for further treatment.
Martin suffers from acute leukemia. Once he has relapsed after going through chemotherapy. If he does not undergo bone marrow transplantation, there's no chance for him to survive. So if we can help him find a matched bone marrow donor, he will have the chance to recover after undergoing the transplant.
Before volunteers left, Martin's father took out an envelope with money. It was medical expenses donated by many kind-hearted people from all walks of life. This family wanted to donate the balance of about $6,438 to Tzu Chi.
As long as I recover, I will go back to school to study. I want to become a doctor. This is my dream because I want to help other less fortunate people. I can feel for the suffering of people who are also ill.
16-year-old Martin is struggling with his life because of the illness. However, after receiving many people's help and medical treatment, he is now able to gradually regain some happiness in his life.
The Central District Tima Medical Team conducts monthly free clinics in the remote villages of Miaoli. Among the volunteers that come help out at the event, some have been participating for over 10 years. Others have started to bring their children to come help out.
In a remote village in Miaoli, Tzu Chi volunteers He Zhenhui and Lai Liyuan are in charge of the free clinic shuttle services. After doing Tzu Chi for more than 10 years now, the dedicated husband and wife duos every move has rubbed off on their son. Currently, he is a certified physiotherapist, and he regularly volunteers with his parents at the free clinics.
I observe what everyone is doing at the free clinic and see if there is anything that I can do to help out. Seeing a variety of medical professionals helping patients with their physical sufferings, it's a very touching scene.
I hope he can continue on in this field, able to serve the population and create positive affinities.
Another volunteer that came with her child is nurse Zhen Yuzhen.
After going on several medical home visits, I've realized that there's so much more to life. Each stage of life has its own specific meaning and lessons to learn from. Also, different tasks one must achieve.
Liu Guangzi, who lives in France, is a martial arts instructor. Every year he returns to Taiwan to help out with the free clinic. He teaches everyone how to do health exercises and also gives much-needed massage treatments.
When I was in middle school, I was under a lot of pressure with my schoolwork, so I started to read a lot of Dharma Master Zheng Yan's books. I think the most important thing is not to just read the sutra verses, but to actually put it into practice. I just keep volunteering and serving others. So I feel like I've always been doing Tzu Chi work.
His sister is a Tzu Chi volunteer, so for years he has been dedicating his time and doing good deeds for others. It's already been 5 consecutive years and many more to come.
First Lady's Health Initiative, an NGO in Chicago, invited Tzu Chi to host a free clinic. Tima responded to the request and was able to mobilize a total of 158 doctors, nurses, and medical students to offer medical treatment.
With flags flying in the background, Tzu Chi begins to set up, participating in this event organized by the First Lady's Health Initiative in Chicago.
We want to work together with these mainstream medical groups to help all of those that work in the entire Chicago area. We want to help low-income people. We hope we can provide these medical services.
My job is to arrange and install dental cleaning equipment. The time that we have to do this is a little tighter than normal. At 5:33 this morning, I left my home and I got here at about 6:32 in the morning.
More than 100 volunteers mobilized to help the free clinic with 7 different departments staffed by Tima. In addition, students from 4 medical schools were responsible for doing basic health checkups and building up case files and medical histories.
This is going to be my 3rd year working with Tzu Chi. The whole point of me wanting to become a doctor was so I could help people, and that's exactly what Tzu Chi wants to do as well. So I think it's a great match.
I had the dental, and I had the rehab, the chiropractor. Yeah.
How was it?
Fabulous. Yes, really a lot of good tips, things I really just didn't know that I think I can use. It's going to be very helpful.
Medical students use games to promote dental education to children. Volunteers also promoted environmental protection and other humanistic education to adults, inspiring people to be compassionate and also adopt a bamboo coin bank.
In Selangor, Malaysia, there's a woman who had long suffered from domestic violence. She eventually left her husband, taking her 2 children to live with her parents. As her younger daughter suffers from a rare disease, she has to visit a hospital very often. Having to face all these hardships in life, she was once resentful toward her misfortune. It wasn't until Tzu Chi volunteers entered her life that she started to change her mindset and even volunteer to help other people in need.
35-year-old Guna Sundari, who lives in Selangor, Malaysia, has to take care of her 2 children alone. In the past, she had a painful memory.
My husband was addicted to alcohol. He often beat our children and even splashed hot water on them. Back then, we lived on the 5th floor, and the kids were still very young. He once threatened to throw them off the building if I did not give him money to buy alcohol. Later, I left where we lived.
Now she relies upon her parents and has to care for her younger daughter who has a rare disease.
Trisomy occurs in only 1 out of 1,000 newborn babies. The median survival period for infants with this disease is less than 6 months.
Due to chromosome abnormality, her younger daughter has to visit the hospital very often, as she has both heart and lung problems.
Yes.
She was once resentful of the many hardships in her life. Thankfully, she started to change her mindset after getting to know Tzu Chi.
She believes in us, so she started to do good deeds. This helped change her life and mindset. For example, she went next door to accompany the grandma who lives alone. This was something that surprised us.
Following the lead of the volunteers to help other less fortunate people, Guna Sundari has not only learned to cherish her blessings, but also let go of resentment.
The source of her suffering came from anger and resentment in her heart. She tried to find out the source and figure out some ways to solve the problem. That's how she overcame it. In Canada, Tzu Chi Academy in Vancouver has celebrated Teachers' Day. The school's administrative staff and Tzu Chi volunteers went to every class to explain the meaning and origin of Teachers' Day to the students. They also encouraged the students to take actions to honor their teachers.
We honor mothers on Mother's Day and we appreciate fathers on Father's Day. Is there a day dedicated to teachers? Yes.
At Tzu Chi Academy in Vancouver, children from different classes serve tea to their teachers to show their appreciation.
Happy Teacher's Day.
Happy Teacher's Day. 两只手好，教师节快乐，要笑一下，笑一笑，很深情的看着老师。好。
School administrative staff and Tzu Chi volunteers have formed a team to explain the meaning of Teachers' Day for the students. They hope the students will honor the teachers and respect their teachings. In Liaoning, China, there's a family of 3, a mother and her 2 children that are in dire situation. The father figure passed away from liver disease, and the mother is now in a vegetative state in the home. The children are the sole caregivers to the bedbound mother. The volunteers receive a call for help from the neighbors, and they quickly conducted home visits. The home environment was in bad shape, so the volunteers decided to mobilize a team to help clean up the home.
The whole bed is a giant mess, super dirty.
There are 2 children in the family, Zhang Yutian and his younger brother. Their dad passed away in 2017, and now their mother is in a vegetative state. The 2 children can only fend for themselves. Their 3 meals a day are never structured. Every time we come visit, the house is always in really bad condition.
The family of 3 is in real dire situation. In July, the neighbors contacted Tzu Chi and they immediately took on the case. In 2 months, Tzu Chi volunteers have already conducted home visits 7 to 8 times, and the common thing is the distinct odor that is emitted every time they step foot into the house. That's why they decided they needed to help do a deep clean for the home.
The toilet was in such bad shape and just plain filthy. Then a volunteer was sitting there just rubbing it over and over again until it was all clean again. That was what touched me the most.
The mother is bedbound. The volunteers carefully help her clean all her bed sores. They also took all the blankets and clothing outside in the sun to disinfect them.
Although we cannot physically take away her illness or pain, but we can definitely help clean up their living quarters. Make it nice and clean for both the adults and children so that their spirits can be lifted while they are at home.
Wang Jihong's eldest daughter is very busy with work, so all the care and home tasks falls on the 10-year-old son. The volunteers will continuously care for this family and let the children know that there's a second family they can count on.
Tzu Chi volunteers from Dongguan, China, have been caring for the elderly after Typhoon Mangkhut. One elderly woman, Ye Mei, has lived in a wooden shack for more than 20 years. She has been reluctant to move, though this recent typhoon led water to leak into her house. After consulting with the volunteers, she finally decided to move to her grandson's house.
This toilet is made with a little canvas and some wooden branches. It was severely damaged by Typhoon Mangkhut. Grandma Yemei's house is still standing, though it's become even more fragile and could collapse at any time. The Tzu Chi volunteers in Dongguan Xinwan community had a discussion with this elderly lady's family. Later, they prepared to deliver a bed to her. This bunk bed is from the factory of volunteer Liu Shoucheng. No one was using it as it was 80% new. It's very sturdy and has many drawers. Volunteers carefully dismantled it and carefully carried it over. The destination is the home of Grandma Yemei's grandson. Grandma Yemei sits on the sofa laughing and smiling as she watches everyone working hard to assemble the bunk bed. After they are finished, Grandma Yemei is invited to lie down on the bed. It's quite big and comfortable.
You can sleep here in this position, and you can also roll around.
As for the Typhoon Mangkhut, which recently passed, it turned out to be a blessing in disguise for this elderly woman. After living in her old house for more than 20 years, she eventually gave it up, as her grandchildren created a room for her to live and settle down.
In Guangdong, China, a woman named Qing Bianxiang suffers from mobility issues due to muscle atrophy. She has to rely on her sister and elderly parents to care for her. In 2016, city volunteers began to enter her life. With volunteers' love and companionship, she now has a different outlook on life.
The same field of view has accompanied Qing Bianxiang for more than 40 years. She has mobility issues due to muscle atrophy. Her father, who is over 70 years old, has to carry her from this small space in their home.
This was when she learned to write in the beginning. Because she did not know how to write, she could only write by tracing the strokes of characters. This was how she gradually learned to recognize characters.
Ms. Qing, who never went to school and is illiterate, has been inspired by volunteers to learn. Over the past 2 years, she has a different outlook on life.
Life is beset with difficulties, but with a determined heart, they will no longer be difficult. This is my favorite sentence. My parents have been working hard.
Now she is able to read Jinsi aphorisms with ease. Every time the volunteers visit, they bring her different gifts. These include writing practice books and all kinds of stationery. She made colorful drawings to pay back the love she has received from volunteers.
There are mountains, rivers, and water. These are chicks, and this is a hen.
The dull atmosphere of the yard is now filled with laughter and joy. Miss Qing folds a paper crane, tells everyone that she wants to fly as a crane and make some changes in her life.
Beijing City volunteers went to Laiyuan, Hebei to conduct initial winter aid distribution home visits. In 2 days, they were able to travel to 19 different villages and visited a total of 129 impoverished families.
The familiar faces of Tzu Chi volunteers this time each year will always appear in Laiyuan, Hebei, visiting the care recipients before winter hits. Zhang Suqing has a bright smile on her face because for the past 4 years, Tzu Chi volunteers have cared for her bedridden husband like their own family member.
He has many bed sores and his food is also rotting. The house smells really bad. Therefore, we took him to the hospital to get medication and then took care of his wounds for him. End of last year till the beginning of this year, he had another episode with these bed sores. But after a few more visits, is doing so much better now.
Every time the volunteers visited, there would be a doctor accompanying them, taking care of all the wounds. They also helped give him haircuts. After he was all cleaned up and feeling refreshed, he couldn't wait to express his gratitude toward his wife. Another medical care recipient is Han Hongying. She was born with congenital cerebral palsy, which left her with deformed and contracted limbs. Fortunately, last year, she was able to get a life-altering surgery. When volunteers visited, she was already able to use the walker by herself.
That day, when I first saw her push the wheelchair to go home, I couldn't stop my tears. I just told myself that the surgery was a success. After the surgery, she was getting better and better as each day went by. I got my laughter back. I started smiling again.
After the operation, Han Hongying worked really hard through each rehabilitation session for more than a year. The volunteers came not only to see how she's doing, but also to bring some good news.
Right now, it's the left foot that is still bothering you, right? It's the left foot that is still tight, if I remember correctly. Our next step is to try to get you some muscle relaxation therapy. If the muscle can relax, then you will have more control. So right now, we are still in the evaluation and assessments process, so everyone still needs to be patient about it. Of course, there is also a fee for this procedure. So let's see if you have the good affinities with this opportunity.
In 2 days, Tzu Chi volunteers went to 19 villages and visited 129 impoverished families. They hope that this love and warmth will continue on until winter.
Shanghai and Beijing Tzu Chi volunteers went to Handan City to hold a tea gathering. The main thing was to promote environmental protection, and the volunteers also took the opportunity to introduce Tzu Chi in more details. Many of the participants were deeply inspired by the volunteers' unconditional giving and vowed to become volunteers.
Promoting environmental protection, Shanghai Tzu Chi volunteers were invited to set up booths in the business district of Yueyang. Through the model of the PET water cube, volunteers promoted ways to save energy and reduce our carbon footprints at the source.
When I was promoting the idea, many of the public really understood. They got the idea how we only have one Earth, how we need to give our next generation a clean environment. Many people are aware of protecting the environment, but they don't have opportunities to physically act on it. So that's why we will share with them doing recycling as well.
Environmental protection is imperative in everyone's life. Many people have some good suggestions.
We should greatly promote these concepts more, especially expanded within the remote areas, letting them realize the importance of environmental protection. Then it can be physically done one step at a time.
Volunteers not only promote the spirit of great love for Mother Earth, but they also hope to expand the idea of compassion and kindness. Therefore, Beijing Tzu Chi volunteers went to Handan City to hold a tea gathering.
We are volunteers from Handan City. We are looking forward to bringing the spirits of Tzu Chi to spread the seeds of great love all over Hebei province.
For the first time, Tzu Chi volunteers made their way into Handan City. They shared about the bamboo bank era and the beauty of humanistic culture.
I've heard about Tzu Chi for a while now, but I never really knew in depth about the foundation. Today I finally got a deeper understanding, and it's really good.
Because I'm still just a student right now, so I have limited capabilities. However, I do hope that I can help within the best of my abilities.
Listening to the volunteer stories, many people were inspired and motivated to join in the ranks of Tzu Chi volunteers themselves.
With climate change, natural disasters have devastated both the Philippines and Indonesia. To help the affected residents, Tzu Chi volunteers in Banqiao and Sanchong have raised funds for Tzu Chi's international disaster relief. Let's hope that affected residents will get through the tough times soon and rebuild their lives. Thank you for joining us. Goodbye.